Welcome back. The African National Congress is today celebrating its 114th birthday. The ANC is South Africa's governing party and has been in power since the transition to democracy in April 1994. The party finds itself currently sharing power with other opposition parties as it could not secure an outright majority in the last general election. Now, the organization was initially founded as the South African Native National Congress on the 8th of January 1912 in Bloemfontein with the aim of fighting for the rights of black South Africans. But let's take a look at why former liberation movements are actually losing their political mojo. Does this anniversary offer the party a chance to reflect on itself and perhaps look at a different trajectory moving forward? Well, joining us to discuss this here in studio is SABC political editor Mzwandile Mbeje. Mzwai, good morning. And it is indeed that time again. It's the 8th of January. And generally, you know, looking back at the tradition of the January 8th statement for the ANC in exile, an opportunity to reflect, but also to give the marching orders for the party for the year ahead.
Well, a very good morning to you, Sakina, and the viewers. And that's what we expect. Though it's happening under totally different conditions. You've just mentioned that this organization now is sharing power with other parties, so which basically tells you that even that statement, they may not say it, but has to take into account the fact that they are not the only ones that are driving this bus. So clearly, as still the major party in that coalition called GNU, they still need to be known and seen what exactly are they planning, because I mean, most of the cabinet ministers, the president, the deputy president, deputy ministers still come from the ANC. So clearly what they say, what they put together somehow is what people, I think, are looking forward to. So we expect them to do the same. But I personally would want them perhaps to start reinventing issues, because I don't think you will win the same battles with the old tactics in a new setup, which is what we are finding ourselves in right now.
And I guess one of the issues that the ANC has to contend with is, of course, celebrating its liberation legacy vis-a-vis looking at the strain that the party is under in 2026 going into a local government election because of governance failures post-1994.
In fact, this should be a very good opportunity for the ANC. I mean, they still have about, assuming the elections will be in November,
yeah.
They still have about 11 months to prepare and perhaps to correct the mistakes and perhaps admit some of the failures and the challenges, and not just do that, but also give some practical example of how you're going to resolve them. So this would be quite interesting for me, Sakina, because as you've said, we are going to the elections, and they are in the elections in government with a number of other parties. So how far do you then blame some of your partners in that arrangement? Of course, you want to be the one, you want to be the only one elected so that you run the municipalities alone, which is ideal because that's when you are able to push the agenda. But then you are finding yourself at a national level with other people who share totally different ideologies to yours. As you then campaign, so how much do you say things that are negative about your partners? So it would be very interesting. I mean, we of course, we're in the...
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well, because I mean, one of the things that we have just witnessed this week is the statements from different political parties around what has been happening in Venezuela. I mean, the parties in the GNU saying totally different things, others saying the ANC is not representing us, and all those things. And that is perhaps the beauty of democracy, because South Africans decided that no one party will have an outright majority. So what will happen is that you will share power. Whether someone believes in the East and one in the West, we do not care. You will have to find a way, because at the center of it all is South Africans.
And it's going to be interesting to see, you know, speaking to the reflection that you pointed out earlier, what does that reflection for the ANC look like in practical terms? I mean, yesterday, given what's happening in the United States with Venezuela and the Conservative Party, and I was listening to Mike Pence, and there seems to be some upheaval within the Conservative Party ranks because exactly of things such as disagreements on how certain issues are tackled. So the ANC has been at this moment, at that precipice for a while now. So at what point do we see what the real reflection is? Because you'll remember way back, Thabo Mbeki made that point of perhaps fewer but better.
Yeah.
How does the ANC reflect?
You know, the ANC actually, I mean, in my view, they have actually a great opportunity to really reinvent themselves. So there's so much that they can do or they can look at that can perhaps even work in their favor. The fact of the matter is that they know what South Africans want. In 2024, they reduced the power that you had because they were complaining about a number of issues, including service delivery. So you already know, so that they can act. And then what is it that you do? So you continue in the same trajectory? No, you have to change course. But also, where they may, in inverted commas, exploit the situation, in the eyes of so many other people, looking at the international dynamics and how, for example, the big powers are saying things about South Africa and the ANC, other people are starting to say, is this something that the ANC perhaps is doing right for South Africans? Why is it attacked so much? You know, these are all the factors that the ANC should take into account. So internationally, from the superpowers, so somehow we are being criticized. There are certain things that are being said about us. And then that immediately then creates an impression to some people to say, maybe there's something they're doing right.
But on the domestic front, South Africans have also been critical about how the ANC has handled issues such as immigration. And that has become, you know, a big ticket item for elections as well.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the ANC needs to really focus, particularly when on the matters, on the issues on the domestic front. I think, Sakina, at some point, the issue of migration will decide the future of this country. And it may not necessarily be these elections or perhaps the elections in 2029. But given how it's gaining traction, how it's being viewed, how it really affects everyone, so it will have to do something about it. So where the ANC may not have been clear, no one really is sure where they stand in terms of pushing the South African agenda in relation to what is also happening with the issue of migration. There are parties which are very open about this illegal immigration that needs to be dealt with immediately. But the ANC, being the party that is anchored on internationalism, on human rights, so they know, yes, there are many things that are wrong that are happening, but whatever action that they need to take, it must be anchored on the human rights, on the democracy, on the freedoms, because sometimes you can't just move with the wind.
Yeah, that they would say that they are constitutionalists in this regard. The Constitution would then guide how they deal with this. I just quickly...
But maybe before you come with the question, but the Constitution does actually allow you to implement the laws that are here. The question is, are you implementing those laws? Because some of what is happening, Sakina, could be prevented. You don't have to create new laws. Just implement the ones that are existing.
And this has been one of the criticisms of the ANC's governance post-94. And, you know, we are out of time, Mzwai, but I just quickly wanted to ask you, you know, also given that this is an opportunity for the ANC to give marching orders, we're going into a local government election cycle, and SALGA, the South African Local Government Association, has been pleading with not just the ANC, but all parties to send candidates who are actually fit for purpose. So just in that regard, how does the ANC deal with that issue in a year such as the one that's coming up?
I think they have internalized some of those discussions. I mean, flowing from what happened at the NGC last month, where they basically admitted some of the weaknesses that they need to strengthen. In fact, you've heard from the senior leaders, people going as far as to say, when we choose the mayors, even the metro mayors, we may have to look beyond the pool of the ANC. That then tells you that there is a recognition that, yes, we may have our own cadres, but perhaps some of them may be lacking here and there, and we shouldn't be afraid to go beyond, because at the end of the day, it's about serving this country.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with all of these aspects. And this is what you can look forward to. It's going to be an interesting year. Local government elections taking place in South Africa this year. But thanks so much to SABC political editor Mzwandile Mbeje speaking to us about the trajectory of the liberation movements post-independence, especially with regard to the ANC.